So you may know this, but Fallen Mode has received a couple of changes. So, initially, starting out, they have removed 3 enemies from Fallen Mode, technically. So they've removed the Heavy, they've removed the Elite Boomer, and they removed the Templar. Now, the Templar is a really weird case. So they removed it from the main Fallen Mode wave structure. It no longer appears there. However, it still does appear in the Hidden Wave, and Hidden Wave is technically counted as part of Fallen Mode. Now, I'm not entirely sure if you would consider that a removal of the Templar, but you can still get the Templar logbook within Fallen Mode, but there'll probably be other ways of getting it easier, such as through challenge maps whenever they do appear, given the fact that only 2 Templars appear in Fallen Mode and in the Hidden Wave. However, they have added a new enemy, the Fallen Dreg, which replaces the Heavy. Now, I believe this is the case because the Heavy is probably one of those enemies that don't really fit within Fallen Mode. It's still in the game as part of Molten Mode though, and that could be the reason why they removed the Elite Boomer and the Templar. They had themes which really did not fit Fallen Mode. Now, when you see the Fallen Dreg, it has 40 health and a speed of 4, while in Trio it has 50 and in Quad it has 55. Whereas when you compare this to the Heavy in Fallen Mode had 60 health, 25% defense, and a speed of 2.8. So when you balance out the health and the speed and the defense of the Heavy, which was also 25%, I think that the Fallen Dreg is basically a one-on-one replacement for the Heavy. So the Fallen Squire has also changed in this update. Previously it had 300 health, it's now been decreased to 250 health. In Sandbox Mode it remains the same at 300 health, it's a weird thing. Its reward has increased from 300 to 400 on death. However, it now has defense. Previously it didn't have any defense at all. However, this is probably because its aggro has been removed from the Fallen Squire. That being said, I think the Fallen Squire does still sometimes spawn in with aggro. That being said, the Fallen Squire no longer spawns in naturally with aggro. The amount of cash that the Breaker now gives in Fallen Mode has increased from 25 to 120. The amount of health that the Fallen Soul has had has increased from 40 to 60. The cash given has increased from 35 to 100. And in Sandbox, its health has been boosted from 40 to 75. As for the Fallen, its health has been boosted from 225 to 300, its cash on death has increased from 200 to 300, and the defense has decreased from 50% to now 0%. As for the Fallen Giant, its health in Fallen Mode has decreased from 4,000 to 3,000. In Sandbox Mode, it hasn't changed at all. Its defense has decreased from 60% to 0%. The speed has decreased from 2.5 to 2. Then the stun immunity, interestingly, for the Fallen Giant has been removed. So this is a significantly weaker enemy than it was previously, and you can now stun it with the Electroshocker. Next, the Fallen Hazmat. Its health has been doubled from 150 to 300, and in fact it's been increased to 400 in Sandbox Mode. However, its speed has decreased from 4 to 3.5. Its cash on death has also increased from 250 to 350. As for the Possessed Armor, its health, its base health, has increased from 500 to 750. Its shield health has increased from 250 to 650. Its defense has increased from 30% to 60%. Its base speed has actually decreased, so it's no longer fast as fuck. It used to be 5 speed, and now it's 3.5 speed, and its cash on death has increased from 500 to 1,250. Next, the Fallen Necromancer. Its health has been boosted from 1,200 to 2,800. Its cash on death has increased from 1,200 to 2,000, and its summer count, the amount of enemies that it spawns in, has increased from 6 to 10. Next, the Corrupted Fallen. Its defense has decreased from 50% to 20%. However, it now spawns in naturally with health regen. Next, the Fallen Hero. Its health has been reduced from 3,000 to 2,750, its speed has decreased from 5 to 4.5, and its freeze immunity has been removed, however it still has stun immunity. Next, we have the Fallen Jester. Its health has increased from 800 to 2,500, its reward has increased by the same amount, its defense has actually increased from 25% to 100%, and it no longer ignores the Fallen Shield. This is interesting because the developers have said that they may nerf the Fallen Jester. However, here, they've buffed the Fallen Jester. I would have to assume that they've changed around the wave structure in Fallen Mode so that this is no longer the case. If spawned in naturally, the Fallen Skeleton gives 60 cash, which isn't a change really, but the Fallen Skeleton didn't spawn in naturally previously. Next, the Necrotic Skeleton. Its health has increased from 750 to 1000, its speed has increased from 5 to 7, its defense has decreased from 40% to 0%, its cash on death is now 2000, which it didn't have a previous amount of cash previously because it never spawned in naturally previously, apart from Badlands 2 actually, so actually this actually is a good change, and its changes should apply to Badlands 2, however, it's not confirmed. Next, the Fallen Rusher. Its health has been boosted from 400 to 800. Its shield health has been boosted from 325 to 600. Its speed has increased from 10 to 12. Its speed without the shield has increased from 5 to 6. Its defense has increased from 0% to 80%. Its cash on death has increased from 700 to 1500, but its stun immunity has been removed. You are seeing that these enemies, while they're being buffed, their stun immunities and their freeze immunities have appeared to be removed. This means that while Fallen Mode is harder overall in terms of its enemies, at least early on, you can easily counter this by bringing the Electroshocker, or the Freezer, or the Snowballer. You never know, you might need to use a Snowballer to beat the Fallen Mode, although, yeah, I don't think many people are going to be doing that. Meanwhile, as for the Fallen Sephiroth, its health has increased from 500 to 750, its speed has decreased from 6 to 4, and its cash on death has doubled from 500 to 1000. Next, the Fallen Shield, and now do bear in mind that the Fallen Shield can be buffed by the Jester now, which means it can get bloated and nimble, so do bear that in mind. So, its Fallen health has increased from 8000 to 10,000, its Sandbox health has decreased from 8000 to 12,500, and its shield health has increased from 2,000 to 5,000. Its base speed has decreased from 3 to 2.5, and its dash time decreased from 5 seconds to 4 seconds. Next, we have changes to the Fallen Tank. Now, the health has increased from 9,000 to 10,000, and the speed of the Fallen Tank has increased from 6 to 7.5. You'll notice why this is important later on. Now, the cash given has changed also from 2,970 every 33% health to 5,000 health every 50% health. However, the developers have removed stun immunity from the Fallen Tank, and based on the wave, the Fallen Tank may have bloated, it may have nimble, and it may have health regen. Yes, the Fallen Tank may have nimble, bearing in mind that its speed is already quite fast, 7.5. Having 15 speed is going to be a bit of a pain in the arse. Now, as for the Fallen Summoner, its speed has decreased from 3 to 1.5. However, the amount of summons that it spawns in has increased from 3 to 6. So, perhaps anticipate something like the Rocketeer or the Mortar dealing with the Fallen Summoner better, given the fact that it also has quite low speed. However, they've also changed the chances around for the spawns that it spawns in. So, the Necrotic Skeleton, its chance has decreased from 40% to 35%, but the Possessed Armor chance has increased from 60% to 65%. However, to compensate for all this, the developers have increased the amount of cash that the Fallen Summoner has given out. Previously, every 25% health, it used to give out 3,750, but now it gives out 10,000, which is quite good, given the fact that it has 15,000 health. Next is the Fallen Honor Guard. So its health has increased from 75,000 to 80,000. Ignore this is the Sandbox mode health, wherein in Fallen mode, it has increased to 80,000 health. But that does mean that the Fallen Honor Guard's logbook is slightly more likely to drop as a random chance, and given the fact that only 2 Fallen Honor Guards appear in Fallen mode, I think that's a very good thing, because that means that you don't need to grind out as many Fallen mode matches just for the Fallen Honor Guard. In fact, I think the Fallen Honor Guard is harder to get in terms of logbook than the Fallen King, because the Fallen King, even though it only appears once, it does have a 15% chance of dropping, which is boosted up to 18% if you've maxed out Scholar, the useless bastard that you are. But the Fallen Honor Guard, even though it only appears twice, it only has 80,000 health, and I can confirm this because I got the Fallen King logbook before I got the Fallen Honor Guard logbook. Now, anyways, the cash given has changed from 18,750 every 25% health to 5,000 every 5% health. So you're gaining more cash at short amounts of health for the Fallen Honor Guard compared to previously. And they've also nerfed the stun time for the Fallen Honor Guard from 8 seconds to 5 seconds, and the radius from 8 studs to 6 studs. The unit damage that the Fallen Honor Guard used to do was 500, this has now been nerfed to 250, so some units may be able to survive 1 Fallen Honor Guard hit. Not 2 though. However, the puddle that the Fallen Honor Guard does produce when it walks, that speed buff that it provides to other enemies has increased from 5% to 10%, and the puddle lifetime, not the buff duration, has increased from 2 seconds to 3 seconds, and the radius has increased from 2.5 to 4 seconds. So it seems like it's more of a medic-like tower, helping out other enemies rather than harming your towers. That being said, it still does fulfill the potential of both roles. Next, the Fallen Angel, a flying enemy. So its health has increased from 2,500 to 5,000, and its defense has increased from 0% to 35%. So, harder to beat, but also a flying enemy. So in this case, perhaps use the Mortar, because the explosions from the Mortar ignore defense, and if you were to use any other tower, it would be quite difficult to beat the Fallen Angel. That being said though, I don't think many people actually notice that the Fallen Angel is in the game, because the prominent flying enemy in the Fallen mode is the Fallen Sephiroth, which appears earlier. The Fallen Angel wasn't really that well known because it was just like another evolution of the Fallen Sephiroth, and even though it was a flying enemy, yes, you didn't really have to anticipate it, given the fact that at the time you probably would have flying detection in the likes of the Ranger, for example, or the Engineer, well, through its tower only. Next we have the Fallen Guardian. Not this Fallen Guardian, no, this Fallen Guardian. So its health has increased from 32,000 to 60,000. So yes, its logbook is more likely to be dropped, but you're more likely to get the Legacy Fallen Guardian logbook in hardcore mode, which allows you to get the Fallen Guardian logbook in modern modes. Its health has been boosted from 32,000 to 60,000, its speed has decreased from 2.5 to 2, its defense has decreased from 50% to 30%, and the cash given has increased from 8,000 to 20,000 every 25% health damaged. And finally, the mother of all buffs. So, the Fallen King, its sandbox health has increased from 200,000 to 250,000. However, in Fallen mode, it actually remains the same at 200,000, I do believe. Furthermore, its speed has increased from 1.3 seconds to 1.5 seconds. Its cash given has also changed from 20,000 every 10% health, which was actually quite bad, to 2,000 every 1% health, which is nominally the same as 20,000 every 10% health, but because you're getting more cash more often, the same amount of cash more often, I feel like that's a slight buff to what it was previously, 20,000 every 10% health. Obviously, the cash given is shared amongst players, and it's not based on the amount of damage that you do to the Fallen King. Furthermore, the necrotic skeletons that it spawns in decrease from 10 to 8. The sword damage has decreased from 150 to 100. This is to units. This is obviously to towers because towers don't have health. And the comet rain damage has decreased in unit damage from 100 to 50. Now, at the time of recording this video, the developers have claimed to have fixed the hidden wave. However, previously, you could accidentally trigger the hidden wave, and for some reason it would actually play the hidden wave and the Awakened Fallen King. So what would happen is that the Awakened Fallen King has the boosted health that is us here. So its health has been boosted from 800,000 to 1 million health. Yes, the Awakened Fallen King now has 1 million health. Its speed has also increased from 1.17 to 1.3, but that being said, the rage speed has decreased from 2.3 to 1.9. Now, additionally, when the Awakened Fallen King used to spawn in, it had a shockwave, which lasted a pretty long time, 20 seconds. However, that has now been decreased to 5 seconds. Now, the Fallen Comet attack that the Fallen King has is actually a ability that the Fallen King has inherited from the Awakened Fallen King. So this is the attack. This is the Comet Rain attack. This is actually inherited from the Awakened Fallen King, and you know this because the abilities is purple here, which is meant to be the Awakened Fallen King color and not the Fallen King color. Why the developers have moved the Comet Rain ability, which is Awakened Fallen King only, to the Fallen King, I have no idea. But it is now part of the set for the Fallen King, as well as every other ability that the Fallen King has. So in terms of ability, there is no difference between the Awakened Fallen King and the Fallen King, except the Awakened Fallen King has the stun when it spawns in, and it also has the Rage Mode ability, which the Fallen King does not. Now, the changes I mentioned to the Fallen King, including the necrotic skeleton count decreasing and the unit damage decreasing, they've also been made to the Awakened Fallen King as well. So overall, the Fallen King is slightly harder to beat, and the Awakened Fallen King is definitely harder to beat. However, in terms of the context for Fallen mode changes, I don't think many people actually mind the enemy changes per se. I think what people are more pissed about is the Fallen mode wave changes, wave structure changes, rather than the enemy changes. Had the enemy changes just been made to Tower Defense Simulator, which I, by the way, think that they're not too bad of a change, and I think they're actually quite good for what Fallen mode is meant to be, and I don't particularly mind the Fallen Dreg being replacing the heavy enemy. Now, these changes were said to have been made to address the power creep that has been made to Tower Defense Simulator, and while I can kind of see it for the Fallen Angel and the Fallen King, for other enemies, I think their changes are quite minor, so I don't think that's really too bad, and in fact, the only thing that I think has changed in terms of power creep is the wave structure in Tower Defense Simulator. However, that being said, I do like the fact that the Fallen King has more abilities. I felt like previously, the Fallen King didn't have enough abilities for the boss that was meant to be. However, I would change out the colours of the attack from purple to blue. In terms of beating the hidden wave for the Fallen King in 60 seconds, I don't think too many changes have been made to the Fallen King, which doesn't allow you to get the hidden wave as quickly as you did previously. The only issue is obviously with the wave changes, which I'll get to in a separate video. I'm not entirely sure how easy it is to get to 1 HP in Fallen mode, and they've also disabled skills entirely, so you can't even like boost your health anymore. And for the hidden wave, I think especially it is now more difficult, and you may need to use select maps such as Fungi Island, because the Awakened Fallen King is much more difficult. 1,000,000 health. I beat it when it had 400,000 health. 1,000,000 health seems quite outrageous, and it's also faster. So the hidden wave definitely is much more difficult. However, that being said, they have kind of given you a buff slightly by removing that 20-second stun duration, which if you didn't have the medic would be a pain in the arse. However, given the fact that everyone uses the medic, at least what they can see from quad mode, I'm not entirely sure about trio or duo modes for hidden wave, I think that that change isn't as major of an issue.